Hey class, just wanted to post a video for kind of to wrap up week 3 and get ready to introduce week 4. So I'm going to start off our wrap up this week by kind of answering the forum post question, section 3B. And I want to kind of highlight some really good student submissions this week and talk about some trends that I noticed amongst many of you that posted. So let's talk about it. So the question was, you had to identify some barriers that you experience as a college student. That probably wasn't too hard. Barriers to accessing services that you see for people with psychiatric conditions, and an innovative practice that you would integrate into a supported education program. And that will probably be the question that I focus the most amount of my discussion today on. I'm going to end the video discussing some things related to the project and also our forum grading and our the other instructor that's going to be assisting me with the class. So without further ado, let me talk about some things that I noticed this week. One student had a really great submission. She posted about being in recovery herself and the problems that she's experienced with some of the services right here on our campus in our university. Not enough hours, people not following up with her. It's kind of disappointing. It's almost embarrassing as such a leader in the area of support education research that the practice really hasn't even made it onto our own campus. So that was sort of an eye-opening one. And to discuss some of the other things I noticed, James had a really good submission discussing the innovative practices he would integrate to cope with symptom management. I think a lot of the things he talked about, symptom recognition, the ability to block out pervasive symptoms and tune things out, in a sense is CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. There's a big focus in CBT on skill acquisition, and that's what the therapist would be working on. If somebody had, say, voices that they were struggling with, one strategy might be to, every time they hear a voice, to actively work to, in some way, tune it out or focus on something else. Christine mentioned using the buddy system, which I think is pretty innovative and would be really cool if we could standardize it in some way. I'm sure that small campuses or even big ones might be doing this in little pockets here and there. Maybe not for students with psych disabilities, but other vulnerable populations on campus. But I think a buddy system to help anyone with a disabilitating condition would be a really cool practice and something interesting to study from a research standpoint. She also mentioned workshops in colleges that help with things like creating scheduling, and Jennifer mentioned that too, helping with scheduling being a really helpful or potentially innovative practice. That's sort of what I help with in the study we do in our department for executive functioning. I discussed in my last video. One of the big focal points of the cognitive remediation intervention is a big piece on prospective memory, or how do you remember to remember something in the future. And scheduling and calendaring and planners, especially for students, are just critical to being successful. So it's a big thing that we talk about. So good submissions there. A couple people, Megan and Diana, talked about from a standpoint of knowing what people are entitled to. When discussing accommodations, there's a problem that exists, I think, in that the person is expected to know what to request from the disability office. It's not the disability office's obligation to inform you of what would be a good accommodation to request. So it's really up to the student to maybe have the discussion ahead of time with with their psychiatrist or therapist to talk about what would be helpful accommodations to request or consider. But I don't think that probably goes on as much as it needs to, and maybe psychiatrists and therapists aren't qualified to be able to advise on that type of thing. So I think that was a really important, innovative practice that really I agree with. There were a few of you that discussed the importance of peer support groups in various forms. Ashley, Andrea, Nancy all discussed to some extent the need for more of these. Some of them I'm sure are already available on campuses and even our campuses. But there certainly would be the need for more. This is, as I had mentioned earlier, an underserved population. Caitlin had discussed an enhanced orientation to the university. A lot of schools do have a very basic introductory course. Sometimes it's like a 1-credit thing when they start, or it's like an online tutorial. Welcome to the university, here's some interesting information and things you might need to know, and here's the emergency contact info. But I think another thing she mentioned, that's being skill groups in academic settings, could be something that could be really enhanced. There just isn't enough of that as it is for just the regular, people without disabilities, let alone those that have them. So that's just a quick overview of some of the really awesome submissions that I got this week. It was really impressive to see some of your work thus far, and keep it up. If I didn't mention you, it's not because it may have been a really good submission. It just may have been something that I had covered in a different area, like it was something that was a trend, and I mentioned it somewhere else. So I want to talk about a couple other things. So one thing I forgot to mention in my email this morning was grades for the forums, for the forum posts. So I will be starting to roll those out this week. So you should be seeing some grades start to appear for the forums week 1 and 2. I always have to wait at least a week just in case I have late submissions or people that are following up on things I requested from them. But I definitely have enough time to grade weeks 1 and 2 at this point. So I should be rolling those out. Professor Luann Librera will be assisting me with that. You will be seeing her probably some more often in the next few weeks, helping with things like the commenting on the forums and the grading and giving feedback on articles for the upcoming final project, which is the last thing I wanted to mention. So our project is due at the end of the semester. However, there is a assignment coming up due in 13 days. I think it's the 22nd, where you have to submit the article that you want to focus on for your project, along with a brief description of your plan. So I just wanted to give sort of an overview of that and kind of talk a little bit more about what I'm looking for. So the first part is pretty well documented in the project assignment outline, what type of article we're looking for, some examples. I also uploaded some examples to our news forum, which is at the top of the main Moodle page. I should be seeing you should be seeing a couple more of those come up over the next few weeks, just to give you examples of the types of articles that you might come across. So I thought I would give you an example by doing one of those. So the first article I posted in the news forum was about the passing of a woman that had a big, important thing to do with founding of Community Hope, which is a big social service provider for people with disabilities in New Jersey. So the article is very informative. It talks a lot about her life and about the agency Community Hope itself, and mentions that there are 30 group homes and support services, including transitional housing for veterans. So I think this would be a good article, something you could really dig into from an evidence-based perspective. So some of the things I would look at if I had chosen this article or was doing this assignment would be to discuss how group homes, while helpful and supportive to people with severe mental illness, are not actually evidence-based. And so I would talk about it in a way how, in the beginning, when deinstitutionalization was first happening, group homes popped up because they thought the need for constant supervision was there. And it is for probably some percentage of the population still. But what the research, as you're going to find out more with supported housing, bears out is that people can live independently on their own in their own apartments and don't need group homes as much as we once thought. So that would be one aspect of the article I would discuss. And then I would talk a little bit probably about the support services for vets. And I would probably dig into Community Hope a little bit more in that I would find out a lot of information about exactly the types of services they provide. I might actually call Community Hope and ask for more information. I might interview somebody there if I could get somebody to talk about what services they provide that are evidence-based, to get a really full picture of the story. I'd kind of like you to be an investigative journalist in a sense, to kind of, if you can at all, gain more information about the story than what you're actually just reading in that article. So you could talk about transitional housing. I don't know what the evidence says on that, but you might be able to do a database search and find some. Look it up in the registry that we talked about in week 2. See if there is an evidence-based practice for transitional housing, or see what evidence-based practices are available for veterans. And you could basically, you're not going to be disparaging the woman, that passed away in this article in your review. You would be more focusing on the agency itself, and talk about how whatever she started, where you would see the future of that evidence, the future of that agency best going, as the evidence shows you now. So maybe to say, oh, some recommendations I'd have for this agency would be to move towards more of a supported housing model. Maybe try to convert some of those group homes to supportive housing type of facilities. I had done a paper back in grad school about this concept of the evolving group home. So it's like a group home that starts out, and then eventually the staff is phased out and the people just continue to live there on their own with minimal staff supervision, and sort of they take over the running of the house. So that's not evidence-based, but that's just, that's more kind of in the innovative practice. But you could certainly talk about the need to have more supportive housing type of services over group homes and transitional housing. So that's a little bit more about the paper. If you have any questions, please email me. Hope you enjoyed this video this week. Take care. I'll be seeing you.